Hey guys, welcome back to KillerCast. This is the big episode 2. I'm your host Cody, and I'm joined by my co-host
Dakota. What's up, guys?
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about the new Blumhouse movie Freaky. Unfortunately, Chase, my brother, is not going to be with us today. He's dealing with some college stuff that goes way over top of my head that I don't understand. I haven't been in college for almost 10 years. So, with that, what's that?
Never even went.
You never even went.
No.
But, go ahead, Dakota. We're going to be talking about the new Blumhouse movie, Freaky. Give us a plot synopsis of what this movie is for people that don't know. Also, big spoiler alert ahead. We're probably going to be talking about stuff that is pretty big whenever it comes to this movie. So if you don't want this movie spoiled, this actually really good movie at that, spoiled for you, turn this shit off.
Yeah, go check it out. It's available on digital right now for theater at home or whatever you want to call it.
It's like, what, $20?
$20. Well worth it, I think. You get it 48-hour rental, watch it 2 or 3 times. It's one of those movies you can rewatch.
That's what we did.
You'll get your money's worth.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it 3 times since it came out less than a month ago. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty good. But basically, Freaky is the story of a teenage girl. Her name's Millie Kessler. She's your average, shy, nerdy type. Doesn't have a lot of friends, doesn't do much. She's pretty antisocial. But she switches body with a well-known serial killer, the Blissfield Butcher, from their hometown of Blissfield.
Played by Vince Vaughn.
The wonderful Vince Vaughn in this. We'll talk about
the
him
wonderful
later.
Monster of a man who's 6'5".
Vince Vaughn is definitely like Daddy AF after this.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, they switch bodies, and we'll talk about later how that happens when we run down through the movies. But they switch bodies, and it's the story of, Millie being inside of a serial killer's body and a serial killer being inside of a teenage girl's body.
So, to interrupt, just think of like Freaky Friday, but with the Manson murders.
Yeah, like a slasher Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
The original working title for this, I think when they wrote the screenplay, I want to say it was like Different Bodies, or it had a certain name.
I think it was called
talked about it.
I think it was called like Killer Bodies or something.
Killer Bodies. And then he was like, no, call it Freaky Friday the 13th. And then they ended up just switching it to Freaky, so people wouldn't assume.
Which, to be honest, Freaky Friday the 13th is not a bad name.
Yeah, but I like Freaky better just for the sense of it's a catchy name, Freaky Friday the 13th is, but at the same time, it's too much.
Yeah.
Like, you can't fit that on a DVD cover.
If you understand the premise of the movie, the plot of the movie, like, it's obvious, like, with the title Freaky, it's obvious what it's going to be a play on.
Yeah, of course.
Because, to be honest, like, the title of the movie has nothing to do with the movie itself.
No, I mean, it's literally just an homage to Freaky Friday, because that's what the general, feel of the movie and idea of what happens is. Like, you're not necessarily switching with your mom this time, Lindsay Lohan. You're, switching with a serial killer. Anyways, I've got a lot of thoughts about this movie. I loved it so much, as we know. But let me hear what you thought about it.
Honest to God, I mean, as crazy as a year as we've had, it's one of my favorite movies of this year. And the reason why, I mean, we haven't really seen a lot in theaters. I think probably the only other 2 or 3 movies that I've seen in theaters this year is New Mutants, whenever the theaters here in Kentucky open back up, Invisible Man, and the travesty on this planet that was Grudge 2020. So it doesn't have much to live up to, but I can easily say that it is probably in my top 10 of this decade, without a doubt, and it's a good way to finish off 2020. There's a few reasons why I liked it. For starters, I don't like horror comedy by any means. It's okay if it's done right, but comedy is very subjective. And I feel like if it's not correctly balanced in a horror comedy, it can almost feel hokey and cliche and forced. But Freaky didn't feel that way. The characters were believable, and they were lovable, and the side characters, even the side characters like her sister, who was the police officer, she had good development. The mother had good development. These two were somewhat main characters, but not necessarily main characters, but they still had good development. And the same can be said for her 2 friends. The gay guy, what was his name? I can't think of his name.
Joshua.
Yeah, and the black girl. What was her name? I can't think of what her name was either. It's been
What is her name? Nyla.
yeah. Both of those had really good character growth throughout the whole thing, along with Booker and the rest of them. And that's something you don't see in a lot of horror movies anymore. And I think what makes a good horror movie is having characters, especially in a slasher. Let me just preface it with this. Especially in a slasher, your feelings towards the characters mean a lot. Because, you sit down and you watch a Friday the 13th, and it's just a new cast of meatbags getting slashed, and you're just like, oh, cool, another death, whoopee fucking do.
Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah, but if you actually care about these characters, it means a lot. I genuinely thought while Joshua had, how do we want to say this, Millie's...
Yeah, so let's clear this up. So we'll try and say Millie and Butcher as much as possible, but if we say the Butcher, we mean the wherever their being is, their mental being. So if we say the Butcher, we're referencing the Butcher in Millie's body, or the Butcher as the Butcher. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or if we say Millie, it means Millie in the Butcher's body, or just plain old Millie.
Yeah,
I guess we could use pronouns, but that also gets complicated. So
yeah, it's a really difficult thing to do whenever you're not like able to show pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
But Butcher Millie, whenever Joshua had her tied up in the house, I was really like, this bitch is obviously gonna get out, and if she kills Joshua, I'm gonna cry, because I actually really liked his character. All things considered, I really liked his character. I thought at times maybe he was a little bit too much, but that's just his character as well.
I thought he was funny, and he had some of the funniest lines in the movie. The only thing that threw me off is when they first introduced him, he made this like rape joke, and it made me be like, oh, this is how we're starting this. Like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
And then like he toned it back, and he was funny again. But that set me off a little bit. I was like, why are you giving off rapey vibes? Like, I know you're gay, but that's still not okay to talk about raping people.
Well,
but he was just joking, and he redeemed himself.
I will say this, within the last... I'm gay. Let's just preface it with that. Mm-hmm. So stuff like this is kind of interesting for me to see, because how Hollywood treats gay characters is kind of odd, especially in horror movies. I mean, obviously the black character and the gay character most of the time die in horror movies.
Exactly.
And
usually die first.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. And considering that Millie's best friends were black and gay, that kind of ruined that trope, which I fully support, obviously.
Yeah, hell yeah. Like, it's good to get rid of it. And it's not even like, and they're main characters too. Like,
yeah,
there's the Butcher, there's Millie, and then there's Josh and Nyla. Like, they're main characters in those. I guess archetype would be the word I'm looking for, but yeah.
And not only that, but it seems like in most horror movies, or in just most dramas, thrillers in general, gay characters have to have like some sort of tragic backstory, or they have to have this coming out story. And I mean, I understand why they're doing that, but why is it so bad to be like, this guy's already established, he knows gay. Yeah, he knows what he is. And to be honest, in a lot of movies where the character is gay, that's like their whole character. And I wouldn't necessarily say that is the case with Joshua. I feel like obviously he's got his own personality. Yeah. Now, it be kind of stereotypically gay, of course, but
they use it in the right tone. And what I like about it is it's already established. Like, it is a defining characteristic of his, but they don't go so out of the way to make that a plot point. That's just who he is. Yeah. And you instantly know that.
Yeah.
And, like, sure, they have a few, like, jokes, like, geared towards it, like when he's talking about how big Vince Vaughn's dick is in the bathroom.
Well, not only that, but there was that scene closer to the end where that drunk football player tries to kiss him and, like,
the
assault him, and he's like, whoa, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, we'll talk about the justice that guy gets.
Yeah.
Later on when we get to the kills and stuff. But, I thought he was, like, excellently done. And the guy that played him did really good. Mm-hmm. I believe he's non-binary, actually.
They did very good.
Yes, they did very good.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is I like the movie, and why it worked for me was because it had a very good balance of believable comedy, believable characters. It wasn't too over the top. The kills were good, and the horror aspect of it was good. And something I've noticed too is probably within the last few years, and I hope it becomes more popular of a way to make movies, is horror movies that are more story based, in terms of the story is more important to the director and the writers and the characters, even, or the actors rather, is more important to them than just throwing some gore on screen. Don't get me wrong, it's good to see some nasty bloody mess every now and then.
And this movie has it. Like it pushes that R rating hard. Like it deserves its rating. It goes hard with the gore.
And the kills that it has in it, honestly,
I don't think it has a bad kill. Entire movie.
No, in the first 10 minutes with that cold open.
Oh,
if you would even call it a quote unquote cold open.
I would call it a cold open to introduce us to the Blissfield Butcher. But yeah, it hits the hammer fucking hard, like right off the bat.
Those first few kills are
some of the best.
Genuinely some of the best ones I've probably seen in 5 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say we know what, I think we mutually agree on what the best kill of the movie is. But some of the ones in the opening scene are amazing.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. But.
Yeah. But that's why it works for me. I mean, like I said, I don't like horror comedies. This one is a horror comedy, and I think it's also a very good, somewhat self-discovery movie too, because Millie really, really has great character development in this movie, because she starts off as kind of withdrawn, kind of meek, because her father died. That's a plot point that is pretty prominent in the movie, and her mother is having trouble coping with that as well, and she's an alcoholic, which leads to the beginning events of the movie.
Leads to Millie almost getting killed.
Exactly.
And Millie, she goes from, like you were saying, shy and awkward, and she finds herself when she gets transferred into the butcher's body, because she was never confident, and it showed her that, just be yourself. Mm-hmm. Own what you got. And you're a fucking piece.
It gave her some closure with her mom too, which was weird. That was
one of my favorite scenes.
That fitting room scene, I was just like, I don't even think I'm watching a horror movie right now. It did not feel like I was watching... Yeah. It felt like I was watching a family drama.
Yeah. Well, there's a really good scene. I don't remember if it's in Happy Death Day or Happy Death Day to You that's similar, where Jessica Roth's character, she goes back to a certain universe and her mom's still alive, who had died, which was a big,
yeah.
It was a big issue of hers. And she finally, if she stayed in this reality, she would get to be with her mom, but it also got her friends killed. And they went on, and, she ended up having to sacrifice that chance to live with her mom, and she has to go say goodbye to her. Yeah. And it is, the most heartbreaking thing. It's so sad. Yeah. And I think that scene's similar to it. It's not as sad, but it's such a good, heartfelt moment.
Well, to be honest, I don't know why there's the stereotype that horror movies have to be all violence. The best way, and I'll say this to the end of time, the best way to write a character is to give them some sort of familial, relatable familial drama. And that, because everybody, I guess what I'm trying to say is everybody can relate to something whenever it comes to your family. Losing a parent like Millie did, that's something all of us will have to face eventually, probably, hopefully. We don't die before our parents, fingers crossed.
Yeah, losing a partner as, her mom, or any of that. And that's what I love so much about this movie, is it has so much heart and it has so much character. And it's a slasher at heart, but at the same time, it's almost like a good family, story.
Yeah.
And especially how they all come together at the end, and it's truly unites them as a pact. They were kind of separated at the beginning, and then, all this trauma brings them back together really well.
Yeah.
And it's really well done.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of both said how we feel about it. So, I want to hear directly from you what you think about it. You've played off what I've said, but I want to hear what you think directly about this movie.
Well, just as a whole, like, I genuinely love this movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of, like, I would say, like, of the, which I guess it's a new decade, but of this decade, it's one of my favorite horror movies. It was really good. And it did so many things well. And like I was saying, like, it has so much heart and, like, you care about every character. And one of the things I love that they do is, like, the entire time you're like, you know that someone you care about could die, but no one does.
Yeah.
It's all a bunch of shitheads.
It's all the dick bags.
Yeah, and even though like there's a serial killer inside of Millie's body, the whole time you're rooting for her and you're like, yeah, fucking kill that bully or fuck these jocks that are trying to rape you at this old mill. Like, cut their fucking heads off.
Yeah, fuck that teacher treating you like shit. Saw that bitch in half.
Yes, exactly. And it's very well acted, well directed, well written.
Yeah.
Overall, it's just a good movie.
And it really does deal with a lot of I don't want to say it's stereotypical high school stuff either, or like what Hollywood wants you to think that high schoolers go through. No, like bullies are real.
Yeah.
Dickhead teachers are real. Potential sexual assault is a real thing.
That's very prevalent, and they deal with it very well. And I think this is a great representation, and we already talked about it, but the gay community, I think they just nail that perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
With this movie.
100%. This movie is very gay.
Very well done. Christopher Landon is also gay.
I didn't know that.
The director, yes.
Really?
And I think he wanted to make a gay horror movie. Well, and I think he did it well.
I don't think... I think... Did they say that he directly went out with the purpose of doing that? Did he say that? That he purposely did that? Or is that how we're interpreting this?
No. They've said, like... Not, like, directly. He wasn't like, I want to do this for this reason. But, like, obviously he wanted to get away from that.
So he pulled a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
Yeah. He's not hiding it. He just didn't want... He wanted to get away from that generic, stereotypical Hollywood gay vibe. That every horror movie for the past 50 years has had.
Yeah.
And, just get rid of it. It's time to move on. Like, there's no reason to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. If you're... Establish your characters well, and you will have a good movie.
Oh, yeah.
Just like this.
Yeah, definitely. Character development is one of the biggest things in movies. And, that's something that everybody's been lacking. And I think I said that in last episode, that studios just want to play it safe. And I will commend Blumhouse to the end of fucking time because they take chances.
Oh, yeah.
The Blumhouse is very like, it's either really, really good or it's like, the fuck is this mess?
Yeah. I was watching an interview with Jason Blum about this earlier, and the guy was asking, like, how long did it take you to accept this pitch from Christopher Landon for this movie?
He was like 38 seconds.
Yeah, he was like, normally we read it over the weekend, and then Monday we come into the board meeting, and then we take each thing and go out with it. And he was like, it took us about 38 seconds, and we pushed it through. And then he was like, no offense to the screenwriters, but I didn't even have to read it because there's not really anything that Christopher Landon could bring me that I wouldn't approve. Well, after how good Happy Death Day was.
Yeah. And to be honest, his way of making movies is actually very interesting, and I think it's a good spin because you take movies and a premise from popular movies. Happy Death Day, obviously, was Groundhog Day, but you put a horror twist on it.
Yeah.
Freaky Friday, you got Freaky, and Freaky works well, and Happy Death Day worked well because, obviously for the reasons we've stated, but also because it does take tropes from popular movies and gives them a good, fresh twist. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's why I like him, and I can't wait to see what he does next, Yeah,
I know, like, obviously will probably be a Freaky sequel, obviously with the ending, the way it ended.
Oh, yeah.
But I saw a lot of rumors online of doing a Happy Death Day, like, Freaky crossover with Tree and Millie, like...
What?
And, like, in theory, you think about it, and you're like, well, this could be a mess. But at the same time, like, I feel like it could be fun.
I don't know how it would work, though.
Like, they could do it... there's a lot of different ways they could do it. They could have it... I just feel like they could figure it out. Like, I feel like if they were going to make it, they would make it well. Because both of those movies are so good.
Yeah.
And if you put both premises together and have those both casts, like, that's great. And that's another thing, speaking of the cast, that I like about the movies that Christopher Landon is making. The guys in them, the main characters, the males, they're not just total like pushover, like loser, like boyfriend jocks. Like Carter, I think his name's Carter in Happy Death Day, and then Booker in this movie. They're just good guys. Like they're good characters.
Yeah,
they're like wholesome, like nice fellas, not shitheads.
Booker, the moment that they put him on screen and showed a little bit of his personality, you could see that it's like, oh, he's not that stereotypical high school football player that cares about one thing.
Yeah, because the first scene, we see him in the hallway to look at each other, like Millie awkwardly glances at him and waves. But when they're in shop class together and he's giving her the tip about the watch after the teacher bitches her out, like I love that scene so much. And they just have great chemistry.
Little things really goes a long way whenever it comes to character development. Little quirks really say a lot. And not only that, but an actor's way of portraying a character's body language. It's like, oh, this guy's very kind-hearted, so obviously he's probably going to be a little more relaxed and he's going to be a little more smiley, as opposed to the emo bitch who sits in the corner by herself. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? And the actors make the character.
Yeah, obviously. You have to give it emotion. You have to bring a character to life. You can't just be, and that's one thing that's wrong with slashers. Like, there's a lot of dull freaking characters.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, meatbags. Like, people that are just like, oh, wow, you can have sex and you can do drugs. Well, let's kill you with a machete.
I can do that too, bro.
Yeah, it's like
that's relatable, sure, but
well,
for some of us.
Yeah, some of us. It's not as easy for everyone. I guess anybody can buy drugs, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so let's transition here. Let's talk about the cast for a few minutes.
Yeah.
The cast is, I genuinely think, phenomenal. I don't think there's a misstep in this entire thing. So,
Vince Vaughn, can I talk about him for a minute?
You talk about Vince Vaughn, and then I'll tell my history with Vince Vaughn.
Okay.
Let's both tell our past previous to this movie.
Okay, so I fucking hated Vince Vaughn. Always have. This movie turned my opinion of him on its head and slapped its ass and said, get to work. He was phenomenal in this.
Yeah, I love it.
Because, let me say this. Playing one character as an actor is hard. Okay? This son of a bitch played two characters.
And nailed it.
It's like, I think I told you in the theater that night, I really thought that Jack Black did a really good job playing a female character, and a female character at that. Let me say that. In Jumanji. Yeah. Jack Black did a really good job playing a female character in Jumanji.
He ain't got nothing on Vince Vaughn.
No, ain't got fucking nothing. Because Vince Vaughn did a really good job portraying a girl, a 90-pound high school girl. And
it genuinely made me feel like Catherine Newton's soul was inside of Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, I really felt like he had no idea. And there was that scene where he learned his strength whenever he picked that kid up, and he's like, "Holy shit, I'm strong."
Yeah.
That was later on, but whenever he was fighting them in the
when he was fighting
kitchen.
Josh and Nyla in the kitchen, he shoves Nyla, and he's like, "Oh,
yeah,
I'm a man."
He sends her back against the wall.
Yeah. I guess she did.
Yeah,
because it's Millie.
Yeah. But he's a standout in this. And, I don't think Vince Vaughn has really had a lot of work over the last few years. I can't think of anything that he's been in other than this. And to be honest, whenever I first seen the trailers for this, I was like, this is going to be fucking terrible. Vince Vaughn's in it. That's really what went through my head. Vince Vaughn is in this. It's going to be bad.
And boy, did he prove you wrong.
He proved me wrong. And, I always thought that Vince Vaughn was a little guy. This motherfucker is 6'5".
He's a beast.
He's big. And I'm pretty sure he did a lot of his own stunts, which says a lot, because I don't think you would be able to find a stunt man, especially for the cold open.
Yeah. So, when he just fucking busts through that door like Jason, I feel like that was just Vince. Because it's maybe they had a stand-in, but at the same time, he's a big dude. He can do stunts.
I'm sure they had a stand-in in some spots, but I feel like he probably did his own. Mostly because you're going to have a hard time finding somebody with that body type.
Yeah.
I really think so. I don't even think Kane Hodder has that body type. And
Kane Hodder's shorter than you think he is.
We've met him. He choked me, remember?
Yeah, but
we've met him
shorter than you.
I was to his shoulder.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm 5'9", 5'10".
I was thinking he was pretty short, but I guess not.
No, I mean he's probably shorter than you.
I mean,
You're
shorter than me.
You're
but
like
I'm
6'5".
freaking monster.
You're Vince Vaughn height. But
Yes.
God, that's really weird.
Like
you could have been his
I
stand-in.
could have been his stand-in. Yeah. I am the butcher.
Yeah. But honest to God, I really think that he was the standout in this movie. And the reason why, not only because he's the main character, I mean, obviously, and you see him on the screen a whole lot more.
But you didn't expect it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't expect it out of him. It's hard, like I said, it's hard to play two characters. The Butcher is kind of a dumbed down version in a way, but whenever he's in Millie's body, you see a lot more of his character come out. Mm-hmm. But since I've talked about Vince Vaughn, why don't you go ahead and talk about our star girl over here?
Well, no, I got stuff to say about Vince Vaughn.
Go ahead.
I got a whole trip. So once I mention why I like Vince Vaughn, you'll instantly know why. But I love Vince Vaughn. And that's because Dodgeball is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I forgot about Dodgeball.
You know how much I love Dodgeball.
Yeah.
I could watch Dodgeball for 24 hours a day.
Yeah. It's a funny movie.
Yeah, I love him from that. I like Wedding Crashers and A Couple's Retreat. There's things with Vince Vaughn in it that I enjoy, which he's not my favorite actor of all time. If you were like, hey, list 50 actors you love, pre-Freaky, no chance in hell I would have said Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I know we've already like hammered to this point, but Vince Vaughn, please, for the love of God, keep it up. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so opposite of Vince Vaughn, we have Catherine Newton playing Millie Kessler.
Yeah.
And I love Catherine Newton. Let me point it out. But I've had a kind of a rocky relationship with her. So she was in Paranormal Activity 4, which was fine, the marked ones.
Yeah.
Which Christopher Landon also directed.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that movie in a while.
Yeah,
I
haven't
really
seen
need to
it
go back and watch those movies again because, to be honest, they're genre defining. But
yeah, I want to binge watch those and try and we could probably have an episode just on the entire franchise as opposed to individually.
Yeah, because they're pretty. I don't want to say cut and dry, but they're pretty much like
we could just,
shit happens.
We could talk of the franchise as a whole as opposed to movie by movie. Anyways, and she was in that show, The Society, that I just didn't like on Netflix. It was so generic and like boring, and it wasn't even her that was the problem, but she was the main character, so I blamed it on her, and I feel bad. So, Catherine, if you ever hear this, I apologize. I think you're amazing. You're beautiful. You're great. But
Society was just bad.
Yeah. The show was just I didn't like it. I did love Detective Pikachu though. She was great in that. Yeah. Her and what is his name? I don't know. Whatever. Justice Smith.
Yeah.
And Detective Pikachu. I loved both of them. They were great. And she just did an amazing job. And everyone compliments. They say, "Oh, Vince Vaughn did such a great job copying her mannerisms as Millie." She did a great job copying the Butchers.
She did a really good job playing a
6'4", 250 pound serial killer.
Because there's plenty of moments in that where he's just used to using his weight in his advantage.
Yeah.
So whenever he's in this little girl, like she's 8, but whenever
he's
in this teenage
like
girl,
100 pounds,
yeah. Whenever he's in this teenage girl's body. And he's fighting the woodshop guy, and he's getting his ass kicked, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And it's like, bro,
self-defense.
Yeah, you weigh like 90 pounds. I could fart in your direction and knock you over.
You can't fist fight like a beefy woodshop.
Yeah.
And yeah, she does a great job with that, and also
I will say this though. Let me say this. He got used to it though,
and took advantage of it.
And
yeah, that's one of my favorite parts.
And he got used to it, and he changed his style.
Yeah.
So
speaking of her, one of my favorite there's two things. One of my favorite, I don't guess it's a joke, but when he wakes up as Millie and she spits out that retainer, I don't know why, but that cracks me up. It just like falls on the floor, and the mom's like, "Oh." And then when they have Booker tied up in the house, and she's trying, the Butcher in Millie's body is trying to convince Booker to help her. She's like, Booker! Like, I don't know why, but I love that scene. I probably shouldn't say that because Cody's dog's best friend is named Booker, and he'll start going crazy. But her line delivery in that is perfect. And she's like, "You gotta help me." Like, I don't know why I like that so much. And that helped drive home the point that it wasn't Millie, it was the Butcher, because she would never say anything like that. Yeah. And Vince Vaughn's really great in that scene too, because he's like, Booker, I need you to listen to me right here. And I just love that whole scene in Josh's house.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did really good.
She did. Yeah. And you know, she obviously is part of the reason why the movie stands out as well as it does.
Yeah.
The whole central cast is really big in that aspect. But Vince, man, I know you're not listening, but if somehow or another this gets to you, keep it up, brother.
Yeah, we're fans. Like,
yeah, we're
you
fans.
and Catherine kill it in this. Yeah. And the whole cast do. So let's just run through it real quick.
And to be honest, I'm glad that you've got my respect.
Oh, hell yeah. Vince Vaughn is just... And Catherine, too. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Celeste O'Connor playing Nyla. Great job. Great. I see her as, like, the mother of the group. Like, she's taking care of everyone. And I really like her scene with Char in the police department, where she's in there trying to take the evidence, and she's like, she doesn't really stand down. Like, Char's got a gun on her, but she's like, fuck it, I got to get this.
Yeah, she's like, I got to get this damn knife.
Yeah, like you're just shit out. What's it called? The Ladola?
Ladola.
Yeah, and then she does really good. And then we have Misha, I'm going to butcher this, but their name is Misha Oshurovic? I definitely screwed that up. Yeah. Plays Josh Detmer, the gay character. Mm-hmm. Honestly, probably the funniest character in the movie.
Oh, of course.
He has some amazing lines, especially the one at the beginning when they pull up to the teacher in like the little like community square, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so, I love your black wiener."
Yeah. That had me cackling.
And he's like, "What? His dog is black." That's funny. And then Booker, who plays Booker? What's his name? Uriah Shelton. And then I
followed him on Instagram the moment we walked out of there.
He's really good. And Booker, that's a good Easter egg. His last name is Strode, so that's obviously a Halloween reference to Laurie.
Speaking of which, this movie's full of Easter eggs.
Yes. So let's pause on Easter eggs. Let me talk about Alan Ruck for a second. And then we'll talk all about Easter eggs.
That's fine.
So Alan Ruck plays Mr. Bernardi, the biggest shithead I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And he's the shop teacher that's really mean to Millie and gets killed with the best death in the movie. You probably know him as Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was in Speed, Twister. He's in a lot of stuff, but he is amazing in this. He reminds me of a teacher I had, which I won't name drop him in case you're listening to this, because I think we're friends on Facebook. But he was my science teacher in 8th grade, and like he wasn't. The reason I say this is because they look alike, and he wasn't necessarily a dick, but he was so stern and to the point. Like, if you took care of yourself and you did your work, it was fine. But if you slipped up once, he's like, you know what? You're a shithead, Dakota. Get the hell out of my class. Like, you're not shooting your bottle rocket today. And I'm assuming you and Chase both will know who I'm talking about. But
are you talking about
Mr. T?
Oh, I was gonna say Mr. Dykes.
Yeah, that could also be the case. Yeah. Either one of those. T just looks more like him.
I didn't have Mr. T.
Okay, fair enough. I think he's retired now. I always liked him personally, but it was just because we talked about science. I was a nerd, so. But yeah, and I even like the cast at the beginning of this.
Oh yeah,
the blood bags.
We didn't even talk about that yet. That scene right there could have been a short film all on its own.
Oh yes, 100%. Hold on, we're forgetting about Katie Finneran. She's in the Night of the Living Dead remake. Mm-hmm. She does really good. I was impressed. She's the mom, correct? Yeah, she plays the mom, Coral Kessler. Shout out to my girl Coral at Burger King. Inside joke. But the mom is a really good character, I think, and she delivers. She's not like your stereotypical like shitty slasher mom. Yeah, I like how she has like a tragic backstory, but they play it well. Like, she has a drinking problem, but at the same time, you know that she loves her family. She's just struggling with the death of her husband,
and she's trying to keep her family together, and that's why she's such a hovering parent. And that's a struggle that Millie and her have, because Millie's like, I want to go to college, but I know it's going to upset Mom.
Yeah, I can't leave my mom, and it's like this happens at the beginning because Char asked her sister is like, "Hey Millie, are you going to homecoming tonight?" And they're like, "No, we're going to see Wicked." And Char's like, "Why are you going to see shitty, like, local community theater?" Yeah. And Millie's like, "Oh, I'm excited." And, like, obviously she's not. She wants to go to homecoming with her friends, but she knows what her mom's been through, and she doesn't know how to tell her no yet. And that, she has a life of her own, even though she wants to be in her mom's life.
Yeah.
But I think they have a really good daughter-mother dynamic.
They do. that would be a really hard thing to balance anyway. I mean, I could not imagine living through that.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
I think they played it
yeah,
very well through the movie.
None of us have gone through the death of a parent here, and hopefully we don't for a long-ass time, but I mean, we've all gone through the death of a grandparent.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that right there is tragic alone. Like, your grandparents are your best friends. And so I can't imagine how much worse it is, especially at that age, because I lost 2 grandparents in the same year when I was 15.
Yeah.
And, like, that screwed me up bad.
Yeah.
And, like, that took a long time for me to process. So I can't imagine being Millie's age and having to process the death of your father.
Yeah.
And I think they portray that really well of her, like, shutting down and just, absorbing into herself.
Yeah,
and being so quiet.
It's trauma and it's grief,
and Char, focuses on her work. They all have a way of grieving.
Yeah, and it's played very well in terms of where it's just not like, woe is me, my dad is dead. It's showing the aftermath of what grief can do to a family.
Yeah, Millie at no point asks for sympathy.
Millie
she takes care of herself.
Yeah, Millie kind of shut down, and she was just submissive, and her mom was overprotective, and her sister was just like, get the fuck over it.
Yeah, she's like, and I think she became a cop, and she's like, work.
Yeah.
Like, she's one of those people, and I'm like that too in life. Like, if I'm going through something, I want to keep my mind busy.
Of course.
And she's like, if I work, I don't have to think about it.
Of course.
And there's a lot of people like that, and a lot of people shut down like Millie, so, like, I get that, but I think they portrayed the grieving process really, really well in this.
They did. Let's talk about a couple of things. For one, I want to talk about that cold open.
Yes.
Because we've talked...
Which had a lot of Easter eggs.
Yeah, we talked heavily about the characters and everything. That's how great this movie is. That's how good those characters are.
Yeah, that we've
spent about, 30 minutes about just characters alone.
Yeah, and the cast, like, it's amazing. But let's move on to the actual movie and, like, what happens.
Yeah, so the movie opens with, I guess you could call it a cold open. Would you call it a cold open?
Yeah. So you've got a group of 4 teens. One of them, the blonde girl. I'm sorry, I don't know their names.
They were on screen for 20 minutes. It didn't matter.
Yeah, not even that long. But they're there hanging out, doing whatever, and she lives in this
McMansion.
She lives in this place. Holy shit! You thought Stu's house in Scream was like a baller pad? You should see this girl's house.
No, this bitch lives in Elon Musk territory.
Yeah, they've got money. They've got they have, like 6 tennis courts,
something like that.
Like, my God, like that's the kind of girl you want to hang around with. Get that money.
Yeah.
And so they're hanging out, and there's 2 couples. So there's the blonde girl and her boyfriend, and then the other 2. Well, the other 2, they spilled drink. She spills wine or something.
I think it was on purpose, actually.
Yeah. So he can, like, make his move once they go inside. And they head inside.
Because what's a horror movie without a little sex?
Yeah. We'll get to that. And I like that they didn't go full nudity on the sex scene, but we'll get to that in a second. So these 2 go inside. They're the first deaths of the movie. The guy goes down into the wine cellar and breaks that bottle. And this is our first appearance of the butcher. And the butcher shows up, and he takes this wine bottle and shoves it down this guy's throat. And I think there's a kill similar to this in Sorority Row.
Yeah.
But it's not as graphic. It just shows blood shooting up through the bottle. But he smacks this fucking bottle, and the glass shards, like, come out of the guy's neck.
Out of his neck. And I remember seeing that and looking at you and going, holy shit, this movie's great.
Yeah, because before the movie, we were like, okay, this is probably going to be good, but I don't think the kills are going to be this graphic. Looking at Christopher Landon's past work. And Cody and I talked about that. And as soon as that happened, we looked at each other and we're like, it's fucking on. And it didn't slow down either.
And that first kill happened within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. 3 or 4 minutes. And then the other girl, she gets caught and they bash her head in, reminiscent of Jim Carrey and Liar Liar, like smashing it on his head.
On a toilet seat.
Yeah, so
Could you imagine that's the way to die?
Yeah. You get, especially, like, imagine, like, somebody like our friend Steven had just used the toilet and then you get crushed underneath of it. Like, that would suck. It was brutal, though, because it didn't cut away. Like, it showed him crushing her skull.
Yeah.
And had he got the mask after they died, I believe? He grabbed it off the wall, or did he have it before?
Well, I think
he had it before, because when it panned up in the wine cellar, he had the mask on.
I think he had a different mask, and maybe he put one on. It's kind of blurry.
Yeah. He picked up the cool one, because the dad is an art collector.
Yeah, an artifact and art collector.
Which is where he had the Ladola in the collection. So then we cut to a sex scene where they're pounding in the garage. I think this is hilarious because the focus isn't on the sex because the girl's done for the first time. Like usually you see it like the girl doesn't, the girl isn't satisfied and the man finishes. But he's like, can I have a few more minutes? And she's like, listen, buddy, this isn't an all-night drive-through. This is a vagina. Yeah. And she just takes off walking. And he's like, come on, let me finish. Just give me 3 more minutes. And then bam, Vince Vaughn comes out of nowhere and just breaks a tennis racket in half and kebabs his motherfucker's head.
I've never seen a kill like that either. That's what was crazy because whenever it happened, I was like, holy shit, because it just come out of nowhere.
I'm pretty sure you said that out loud in the theater. It was like us and 6 other people, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I remember these first kills, I meant to say this with the bottle. I watched this the 3rd time with my mom and sister, and they both like cringed so hard when the glass shot out of his neck.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, oh. But the tennis racket was really cool. And it's not even, I guess it wasn't that hard to do.
No.
But it reminded me a lot of Jason.
Yeah.
These first 4 kills specifically had like hella like Jason Voorhees vibes.
Well, they were all, I don't want to say different because the toilet seat is not that different, but at the same time, they were more than just getting stabbed. They were more than
they weren't
getting your neck snapped. They were more than getting your head stomped.
They were creative.
They were creative.
Yeah.
Who would think like let's snap a tennis racket in half and slam them into your temples?
Like that was so good.
That's clever.
I love that.
Now I will say the last kill because
wasn't as good.
She runs off and she hides in the closet,
and then the dumb bitch comes out. But before that, there's an amazing Friday the 13th Part 4 reference where Vince Vaughn just busts through this fucking door. Like, shards go flying everywhere. It's literally like a direct reference to Jason busting through the doors.
And, I thought the same thing because, I'm glad that they took tropes from classic horror movies because I like to see a lot of those things pulled in to modern as a love note. It's like, this is where it started. And, I mean, honest to God, we could sit here and say...
Every little thing is a reference.
Yeah, you could say every little thing is a reference. You could be like, but Kody, that is just a normal thing that would happen with a big 6'5" guy. He just busts through a fucking wall if he was going to try to kill you. Yeah, but it's...
You have to look at who's making this movie.
You got to look
obviously a horror fan. It is a Jason Voorhees reference.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of things that like maybe not, but it's obviously a nod to certain things, and we'll address them as we get to them. But
not only that, but like that, whenever he busts through there, and he grabs the final girl from this cold open and slams her onto I think it was some antlers or something on the side of the wall.
No. So what happened is he had some sort of like staff, like a throwing weapon.
Like a spear, and
he throws it. She hides, and then the dumb bitch, she hears her parents, so she comes out. She takes off running. She's like, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy!" And he just picks his bitch up and spikes her on it. And I mean, you could say like it's a reference to a lot of things, but it's got that Halloween vibe of getting pinned to the wall. And then it is obviously a direct nod to Scream, like with Casey Becker's death at the beginning with her parents coming in, because the mom screams and then it cuts to the title card.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean...
Title card.
And it's not just that it's the reference to. It's also a reference to it because it's a cold open to a movie.
Yeah.
And their cold open, Scream's cold open, quote unquote cold open, did the same thing. It ended with the parents screaming. So I mean, you could say that is that as well.
I mean, maybe not. Maybe Christopher Landon has never seen Scream, but obviously it took inspiration from that. I mean, and killing off those characters so hardcore because I mean, Casey Becker was disemboweled and hung from a tree from her intestines.
That's true.
So
that was rough.
That kind of set forward the emotion of everybody's fair game. And I think that's true in Freaky, too. Like, none of our main characters or, like, none of the characters we like and support get killed. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, oh, this bitch, like, we're not afraid to freeze her solid and kill her.
Yeah, because that's what happened with the bully.
Yeah, like, so we'll get to that. So what happens next is we're introduced to Catherine Newton's character, Millie Kessler.
Yeah.
She wakes up and kisses her Panic at the Disco poster. And let me just tell you, her mom is not trying to keep this girl healthy. She had French toast, pancakes, bacon, eggs. She was pouring syrup all over that damn plate.
That's what I eat for pre-breakfast.
Yeah. But like when you're a petite, teenage girl, like you're not eating all that shit.
No.
It's a very like I guess yellow breakfast. There's not a lot of health going on there.
Yeah.
Like she was cutting up some pineapple, but
yeah.
And so we get introduced to her. This is where they introduce the family, and it kind of shows the dad being passed away and the mom's drinking problem. And
it gives
Char
the
being a
backstory that
workhorse.
It gives the backstory that we've talked about for like the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, and then Millie goes to school, and we get an introduction to her friends. Also introduces us to the bully. Believe what is this guy's name? Is it Evan? I don't guess it really matters. But
I don't
know.
know.
His name was Tim. Tim Turnipseed, played by Zach Schreier.
I was going to say, I don't even think they gave him a name. He's just a douchebag.
Yeah, he was just like a school bully. Not even a school bully. He's that kid that's like, just gets on your freaking nerves. Like, I could name like 6 kids that I went to school with. Like, they're not, they are bullies, but they're just annoying as shit.
Yeah.
It's not the kind that would like pin you down in the hallway and beat your ass.
Yeah.
But we get introduced to him scaring Millie, and then the popular girls, and they make fun of her because her clothes are from the discount. What's it called? The Discount Bonanza?
Five and Dime or something.
No, it's Discount Bonanza, where her mom works.
Which I don't know why people talk shit about that. I get some great deals at Goodwill.
Yeah, and also like when it shows Discount Bonanza, that's not really a thrift store. Like I see a lot of people online say it's a thrift store. They're selling corn dogs. There's a poster. They got corn dogs for sale in there. And I see it more
That's what
as
makes
like
it not a thrift store. Is they have corn dogs for sale.
Well, I see it more as like a Marshall's or like a Burke's Outlet.
Yeah.
Like kind of one of those places that's like
it's like an overstock store.
Yeah. It's like shit the Target couldn't sell. And it's marked down, so like fuck off. I buy like almost all of my jeans from places like that.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't mean to get on a tangent about restock stores. But we get introduced to that. She goes to shop class, and this is the first chance we see Booker. The teacher's being a dickhead to her, Mr. Bernardi. And, her and Booker have this little moment, which comes crucial later, where he's like, she's late to class, and he's like, pro tip, always set your watch 5 minutes ahead of time. So, covers my ass every time. And she's like, oh, thanks. And they go on, and then later that night, it's homecoming. And I love this trope. It's a joke that Josh makes. He's like, homecoming is like whatever here. There's no way they're going to cancel it. And then it cuts to the giant homecoming football game after 4 teens have been killed. And he's like, told you.
Yeah.
And then, so Millie's the mascot. She's doing it for extracurricular activity. And, she's leaving and her phone dies. She's there by herself. And then the butcher shows up and he's standing across.
Let's say this. Her mom, because of her alcoholic tendencies,
she's
tries
drinking
to call
and
her.
passed out.
And she doesn't show up.
Yeah.
And so she tries calling her sister, who does answer.
I think her sister calls her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her phone actually dies, but her sister is on her way anyway. She knows where she's at.
Yeah.
And so that's where we pick up with the butcher.
Yeah, he shows
she sees her. She sees the butcher like from across the parking lot, and she's
in this big chipmunk costume, and she's like, "Shit!" She's like, "Please don't be the butcher. Please don't be the butcher."
Yeah. And this is where we get that that normal horror trope of the girl running from the killer, and obviously the killer's going to catch up to her.
But it's done in a funny. I like how she was in the mascot outfit. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and it was actually suspenseful because I was pretty tense during that.
Yeah, it's like, are they just going to kill her? Like, what's going to happen?
And
they get to center field, and
what we need to state is the butcher actually took the Dola knife thing, which was made of like bone, and it had, oddly enough, listen, it was an Aztec sacrificial dagger, but if you look at it, and I think they even say this in the movie, it had Spanish carvings in it, which make no fucking sense.
Yeah, so Christopher Landon said that the lore behind the Ladola was completely made up. But basically, Vince Vaughn, I'm pretty sure the butcher just took it because it was a cool weapon.
Yeah.
Because he was just there to kill some fucking teens.
No, it called to him. It called to him.
It called to him.
So he took it.
So my question is, he stabbed her and they switched bodies. But in the text, it says that if you kill the sacrifice, that's the whole point of it. So if he had killed her, I would like to know what the result would have been. If the sacrifice, or the sacrifice was committed or completed successfully? Like, I'm curious.
They probably said it, and it might have just went over our heads.
I don't think they've said it.
Really?
I went back and I watched a few things about it. I don't think they said it.
To be honest, it's probably better to leave it that way if that's the case.
Yeah, that's like...
Because, well, what makes something good and interesting a lot of times is mystery. And sometimes, and this is in anything, this is in books, TV shows, movies, it doesn't matter, any type of media. Sometimes mystery is a good thing because it leaves it for you to interpret, and it opens discussions like what we have, and it promises the longevity, like we were talking about with The Thing in last episode. What's good about it is 4 decades later, it's still talked about.
Yeah, and I think Christopher Landon leaves stuff like that open for interpretation because Happy Death Day didn't really explain how what happened. And in Happy Death Day to You, they didn't really need to explain all this shit, but they did, and you know what? They did it okay. So maybe if there's a freaky sequel, we'll figure out what Ladola's purpose really is. But anyways, they wait till midnight, they switch bodies, and then they wake up. And this is, like I was saying, one of my favorite jokes. He wakes up in the Blissful Butcher wakes up in Millie's body, and he spits the retainer out and looks around, and he's like, where the hell am I? And then he realizes, he's like, oh my God, I'm in a teenage girl's body. So he goes to breakfast, and once again, they have this big feast, and he picks up the knife, and he tries to kill Char, and the mom's like, oh, no, I'll get that for you. Like, it's no big deal. And he starts eating like Steven at a buffet. He starts, like, just hammering in this food, and the mom's like, okay. So it's like, oh, well, whatever. And then we cut to Millie in the butcher's body, and she wakes up in this, like, crackhead, like, asylum. There's, like, all these, like, mystery art projects
and
around.
the homeless guy runs up, and he's like, you got any drugs? I'll suck your dick for drugs.
He says, you got any jelly beans?
There's
a few references in this. So there's obviously the pinhead, the mannequin head with all the nails in it. I saw someone said there's like a mannequin that kind of looks like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. I didn't see that
there. I didn't pick
personally.
Up on it.
I did notice. So Christopher Landon directed and wrote. I actually think his partner wrote Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and there is a dead cat in the butcher's lair. It's the exact same cat they used in that movie.
Really?
From one of the scenes.
That's interesting.
So there's a lot of difference, and that's one of the funniest line deliveries in the movie, because the Millie in the butcher's body is like, do I look like a teenage girl? What do I look like? And the homeless guy, he's like, I want to look like a teenage girl. And then he's like, come on, I'll suck your dick for it. All of it. And it's
all your dick.
And that was that was the first time I was like, oh yeah, this is rated R. They can say shit like that. Like, they don't have to hold back. Like, we can talk about sucking dick or whatever. And then, Millie, it cuts to Millie going to school. She's getting ready. And they've said it's a direct reference to Sandra Dee in Grease, where she's got her jacket at the end.
Yeah.
She gets the red jacket. It kind of got the Thriller vibes also.
It did. It really did look like the Thriller jacket. And, that transformation, you would think, would throw up some red flags to people. And it kind of did. But
but she just fucking owns it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just say it. She looks hot.
Yeah.
Like, she's a cute girl. And that's another thing.
Well, here's the thing. Think about it. The butcher, a serial killer, is in a girl's body.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to look hot today.
Yeah. Because they do such a good job of, like, and I guess, like, what I'm saying here is, like, maybe you should give some ugly girls jobs. Because, like, it reminds me of Jennifer's Body, where they take this, like, beautiful actress and they try and act like they're not attractive.
Yeah.
Like, they try and make Millie, like, reserved and shy and, like, oh, she's not that cute. But, like, yes, you are, Catherine Newton. You're beautiful. Stop. And the reason I bring up Jennifer's Body is Amanda Seyfried's like that as well. It's like, you're freaking Amanda Seyfried. Stop. Like, she plays the nerd in that movie.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, that's Catherine Newton's favorite horror movie. I've heard her talk about it in, like, 12 different interviews.
Really?
I don't know why, because I don't like Jennifer's Body. Yeah. I haven't watched it in a long time.
I hated that fucking movie.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but maybe I'll rewatch it. We might talk about it. But anyways, I love how different the transformation is there. Because you can tell how different the character is once he goes into the body. Because she shows up, and I don't know the exact name of that song, but that song's playing. She walks through all those football players, and the guy, squirts the tube of yogurt, and it shoots up in the air. Yeah. And it's like, damn, this bitch is bad. Like, she's a badass. Like, it's getting ready to go down. And this is where the fun starts.
Yeah, this is where the Freaky Friday elements actually take place, where, Millie in the butcher's body is like, what the hell is going on? And the first thing that she does is, she she runs into town. She's trying to...
Yeah, and they're all like, hey, you're the Blissfield Butcher. It's him.
Yeah,
it's
exactly, because the whole town knows what he looks like now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's been like a criminal police sketch of it.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, holy shit! So they know he's on the loose.
Yeah.
And Millie actually goes to the school Millie and the Butcher's body goes to the school first.
To find Nyla and Josh.
Yeah.
And she does. And this is one of the funnier parts of the movie.
Yeah,
they start a chase scene.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I'd say probably the best line of the movie, where he goes, you're black and I'm gay, we're gonna die.
Yeah. and it's got that... And I like that line because it had a level of self-awareness.
Yeah. It like just almost broke that wall.
Yeah.
But it was good, yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, if me and you were running down the hallway, which,
you the same thing. Like,
you'd be running down the hallway holding your pants, and I'd be out of breath 2 steps in.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm fat and you're gay, we're both going to die. Like, it's going to happen. And I love that. That whole chase scene is good. Like, they're throwing tater tots and hot dogs at him. And it's funny. And then they finally get where... Millie realizes she's strong, and she knocks Nyla down, and she's like, okay, stop hitting me with shit. And she starts doing the little Blissfield, like, the mascot dance.
Yeah.
And then they do their handshake, and they're like, oh my God. So we
got like, holy shit, you're for real about this.
Yeah. So they're like, well, so they go to the bathroom, and they're like, we got to figure out what the Ladola.
Yeah.
They have to figure out how to reverse the curse. And in the meantime, the Butcher is going wild.
Yeah.
So there's a mean girl named Ryler that had made fun of Millie earlier. She's the one that made fun of her clothes and stuff. And Millie, or the Butcher, draws her into the locker room area, I guess.
The Butcher and Millie's body.
Yes. So the Butcher, I'm just going to say the Butcher. Wherever their consciousness is what I'm referencing.
Okay.
So the Butcher leads her back there, and he's like, he grabs the fire hydrant, is going to kill her, he doesn't. And she goes to the bathroom because she's talking about drinking all these kombuchas. And she's still making fun of Millie over text. She's like, vegetarian. She's a total lesbo. And then she sees Millie taking a shower because she's cleaning up because she's the dirty Butcher. This is before she meets up with Josh and Nyla.
Yeah.
And the Butcher comes back out, and she's like, Ryler, you have to hide. This is bad. And she puts him in one of those cryo chambers.
Yeah, it's for therapy for
athletes.
For athletes.
Which makes me think, holy shit, what a budget this school has.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds us of our high school, budget went into football and basketball.
Yeah, but our textbooks were 1,000 years old.
Yeah, I swear to God, all of my math books and social studies and science books were all duct tape shut. I had to put book covers on them because they were so embarrassing to pack around.
America, get your education system on track.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was in marching band, so this is the prime example.
Yeah.
We needed so much shit, and we had to go out to freaking county fairs and the Apple Festival or whatever, and sell funnel cakes to raise money to buy new drumsticks. The funding and school education system, sports aren't that good. Screw off.
Yeah.
And that's a prime example. Why do you have a cryogenic chamber?
Yeah.
For your football players?
Which, to be honest, we're in Kentucky. You all out in California, you might have crazy shit like that, but
that's not something we have.
Here's something that our school, there was a rumor in our school whenever I went into the high school, that the pool was on the roof.
Yeah.
We didn't have a fucking pool to begin with, but everyone believed it.
Yeah.
Some of you might be lucky enough to have a school pool. If you do, great. But, we live out in the sticks. It doesn't matter. Anyway, cryo chamber.
Hold on. Let me just preface this about how... I got to talk about how shitty our school was for a second. So our high school, it was 2 stories. So upstairs was all the math and most of the English classes.
It was mostly freshmen whenever I was there.
Yeah, they changed it. All the math was up there when I was there. But my freshman year, I had reparative hip surgery. So I was on crutches for probably 2 months. And, I had 3 or 4 classes upstairs. And my ass was not crutching up the steps. My big fat ass was not doing that, so there was an elevator. And there is this elevator. It reminds me of the elevator in Drag Me to Hell. It is such... There was, I'm pretty sure there was, semen all over the walls, and there was, big dicks drawn around. It was, the walls are oozing. It was awful. Anyway.
The walls are oozing cum.
Yeah. You couldn't spend, $100 on repairs for this, but you can buy charter buses to take the football team to Florida to play whatever school. Come on. Anyways. So she puts her in the cryogenic chamber, and later back, they come back. Millie, as the Butcher, comes back and opens it, and she falls out. She's frozen solid. She falls. Cody and I about shit our pants when we saw this.
Because that's
an old horror movie kill. Like Jason X specifically reminds me of that.
But regardless, it doesn't matter how many times it's done.
It's still
a cool way to kill somebody.
Exactly.
And that's probably, what is that? Probably the 5th kill of the movie. Because at this point, they killed the 4 in the cold open and then her.
Yeah, this is 5. Yeah.
So that's the 5th kill of the movie.
And this is probably my favorite example of a freeze kill.
Yeah, because it really much so modernizes it. I mean, it's not believable by any means, but I still feel like it's more believable than dipping somebody's head in liquid nitrogen and smashing their head on the side of a metal table.
Exactly, yeah. I think they do it very, very well.
Yeah.
Logan has a good kill like this as well, which is not a horror movie, but when they release all the little mutants, and I think it might be Rudy from On My Block, or On the Block, or whatever. They free somebody and like shatter their arms, one of the soldiers. And, like, movies do it well, but I think this one did it the best.
Yeah.
It was really good. And fuck that bitch. She deserved it.
Oh, yeah. She was a cunt.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way to say this. This girl was, like, 4'8" and had no business being rude to Millie.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Millie should have beat her ass anyways.
Yeah. She was, like, the stereotypical mean girl, high school bully.
Played very well. Like, she's a believable bitch.
And, you know, I can't think of what the actor's name is, if you want to look that up.
Melissa Colaza.
Melissa Colaza, listen, girl, I don't know what you're like in person, but I hope to God you're not like that bitch you played.
I'm sure she's a sweet girl.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Usually short girls like that are either really mean or really nice. So.
Yeah, it's a height thing.
Yeah. It's
you're a pissed off dwarf or like a happy little gnome.
Yeah, exactly. So the next kill is my favorite kill of the movie. You would agree? I would assume.
Which one?
Mr. Bernardi.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah. So. She goes back, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing in here, Millie? You better get your ass out of here." She turns his table saw on, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck." I'm like, "Here we fucking go." I was like, "Do they have the balls to do this?"
Yeah.
And she has a screwdriver in his hand, and he walks up, and she tries to stab him. And he's like, he slams her on the ground, and he's like, "Self-defense." And then
this is where the butcher gets a taste of what it's like being in Millie's body.
Yeah. He gets his ass beat.
More so on the physical aspect, because I think at this point, you know, he had already been mistreated not only by that girl, but also by Mr. Bernardi.
Yeah, the teacher.
Because there was a scene prior to that where he, like, berates her in front of everybody, and he was like, she was
Oh, yeah. He went to the class. This is actually this is a reference to probably Jennifer's body. She sits down and Booker cuts his finger and she just starts sucking the blood out.
She starts sucking his
finger. And he was like, if you weren't too busy, you know, seeking attention from everybody, you little whore, you would do better in building your doghouse. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Which is weird when you think about it. The butcher just straight up sucked on a teenage boy's finger. Ain't that weird?
That's not the only thing he sucks on. He starts sucking face later. That's my favorite scene in the movie. We'll get to that. Still heartfelt.
But the scene where Mr. Bernardi dies,
they have a fight
scene. That is the first time the butcher has really experienced what it's like being in her body, because Mr. Bernardi fights him off, and I'm like, oh my God, he's not gonna fucking die.
He's gonna beat his ass.
And I will say this: the butcher fairly quickly
gets the upper hand and stabs him in the neck.
Because the butcher. The whole time I watched this movie, I thought he was just some big, dumb, muscly idiot.
No, he's very intelligent.
But he's actually very intelligent. Whenever he first swaps bodies, he didn't say anything. And it really threw me for a loop, because I was thinking that maybe he was going to be mostly a silent character. And I was thinking, like, you know, that kind of makes sense as a horror trope if you're talking about a big, burly guy.
And this
much like Jason and Michael.
This pays off in the end as well.
Yeah.
With him speaking.
But the fact that he is intelligent and he is clever and he does use Millie's body after he learns its physical limitations to his advantage it actually shows a level of cognition I didn't believe that he had.
Exactly.
But he gets the upper hand on Mr. Bernardi, pushes him onto the table saw, turns it on.
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, the only problem I have with this is he stabs Bernardi in the neck with the screwdriver. Mm-hmm. And I find it hard to believe that he would have actually pulled that out of his neck. I feel like he would have been smart enough, knowing shop safety, to keep it in there to block the bleeding.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
whatever.
you can nitpick it to that degree, but I think if your adrenaline is rushing to that point,
Yeah, you would just yank it out.
you would yank it out because I mean you're being attacked.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like, what's the closest weapon? Whatever's in my body.
Yeah, let's use it. So anyway, she grabs onto this chain and kicks him on the table. And it's not subtle. It shows it all.
No.
She saws this motherfucker right in half.
And I will say this movie did a really good job. If it had CGI in it, other than like obviously there were some
ice CGI,
kill.
but very good practically.
But it had very good practical effects because Mr. Bernardi dying, that was not CGI. If it was, it might have been enhanced, but it was practical because it showed his body being cut in half and splitting. Obviously a prosthetic.
Yeah, I mean...
And splitting and then falling to the ground.
I would love to have that. I just want to preface that. Like, I would love to have...
Put it in a DTOF and just leave it.
I would love to have the prop of Mr. Bernardi's body sawed in half and just hang it up in my room.
This is a cross-section of... what's the actor's name?
What is his name? Oh, come on.
We said it earlier.
I've already forgotten.
Yeah, but whatever.
It doesn't matter. I'll tell you later.
This is a cross-section of so-and-so. Yeah. And it was actually an on-screen prop. That would be cool.
Alan Ruck.
That would be cool to have, but...
It's like, you remember that kid from Ferris Bueller's Day Off? He got old and I sawed him in half.
But that is probably the coolest kill of the movie. Definitely and to be honest, we've seen that trope is something very common in TV, both in animation and live action. And it's somewhat common in movies. You know, you've seen some saw kills, saw kills.
Never to that degree.
Never to that degree that I can think of. There might be like a handful of movies that have used it, but not to that.
There's that joke in South Park that's really good, where he's going nuts first, and he's like, "What the hell would I do that? That would hurt." And then he turns himself around and goes head first.
Yeah,
it doesn't show it though. And then I don't know if you remember in Child's Play 2019 when the guy was in the basement of the apartment building, and Chucky was screwing with him, and he had a hold of the thing.
Didn't that cut him like from the crotch up?
Though? Yeah. But I don't know if that's what killed him or not.
I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen that movie.
I haven't seen it for a year or so.
But that's a good scene. And then from there,
So this is a really important part. He leaves Mr. Bernardi's room, and they run face-to-face with Millie and Josh and Nyla.
Yep.
And they think, oh, get him. And then the butcher's smart, and he's like, I'm in a teenage girl's body. And he's like, it's the Blissfield Butcher! Help! And then the cops come out, and they take off. So
he screams like, he's come to finish the job!
Yeah. It's like he did a really good job disguising himself.
Yeah.
And they take off, and they go to Discount Bonanza to get him a new outfit. And this is where one of the most...
They get him like an Aaron Rodgers mask or something.
And they say it's like scary Aaron Rodgers, but if you look at that mask, it looks just like Oliver Jackson Cohen from Bly Manor and Invisible Man and all those. It's scary how much it looks like him. Like, they should pay him the likeness, not Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
But they've got that, and then one of the most heartfelt scenes in the movie, which I think we already talked about this. But the mom, opening up to Millie.
Yeah, because she doesn't realize who she's talking to.
Oh, obviously not.
What's happened is he's gone into a fitting room to put on new clothes, I think.
Yeah, and they start talking about polos.
Yeah, and the mom comes in, and she starts talking, and she's like, "Oh, it's sorry, I didn't mean to press. It's it's just been hard since I lost my husband," and that leads into a discussion between Millie and her mom, who's unaware that she's talking to Millie about the issues that they've had, and without knowing it, Millie knows what she's doing, but the mom does not. Millie's able to tell her mom, is able to have the confidence, I guess, because she's talking to her not only through a barrier,
but in a different body.
Which
she's much more confident in.
Yeah. And she's able to tell her mom, maybe you should give her a little space. Maybe she needs a little space.
Yeah.
And that scene right there, I didn't feel like it went on too long.
No, it was perfect. And one of my favorite lines from that is she mentioned she lost her husband. And then Vince Vaughn is like, oh, I lost one too. Yeah. I lost my dad. And that broke my heart.
It did me too, because it's like Millie is straight up getting the closure that she doesn't have the courage to get.
And this is probably the first time she's been open about it, because she's not afraid to talk about it. in this scenario. I think it's a very beautiful scene.
I think it is too, and it's a scene that means a lot, and it's one of the most emotionally impactful scenes that I've ever seen out of any horror movie.
Yeah, I think they both like hands, clapping, whatever you want to say, to Katie Finneran and Vince Vaughn. They did an amazing job in this scene.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It was one of my favorites. Not my favorite scene in the movie, but one of my favorites. It's very, very raw, tender emotion.
100%. Yeah.
Great stuff. Anyway, so they leave there because Char shows up. Char was chasing them before this. We didn't mention that. They're trying to get away. So turns out Millie has invited, or the butcher has invited everyone to, they want to have a party because homecoming, the dance got canceled.
Because of the recent murders.
Yeah, because of the murders at school. So they're like, okay, well, we can go party at the old mill, which is where the butcher lives. So before that, they go to this. First off, if this place was in our town, I would literally hang out there every day. This arcade and like spooky, like scary mini golf.
Oh yeah.
Like, I saw something the other day. I think it was an interview with Christopher Landon where they just randomly found that.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's near Atlanta, which honestly, if it is, I would drive down there to see it.
You know, to be honest, it works well. It didn't feel out of place by any means.
Oh no, I love the aesthetic of the mini golf. That's a really good scene. And they have a little chase. She lures Booker in, and this is one of my favorite lines in the movie. There's this jock, and he's like grabbing Millie's ass, or grabbing the butcher's ass, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck you tonight. And she was like, nothing makes his pussy drier than your touch.
Yeah. And I screamed at that.
I was like, you go, girl.
I'm like, I'm gonna write that down and use it later.
Yeah. Change the P to a B. Like, I got this.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then she lures Booker in there, and then they capture both of them. Millie knocks out the butcher.
To be honest, I was really worried that Booker was gonna die.
I did too.
I really was too. I'm like, please don't kill him.
Yeah, I was like, don't do this.
And that really says something about a movie whenever you have a character that you're like, oh my god, is he actually gonna die?
Yeah.
Is this actually going to happen?
All of Millie's friends and companions you feel for. Like, you don't want them to die, and I'm glad they don't.
Yeah.
Like,
and even with as little screen time as Booker had at this point, because he doesn't really become a very prominent character until about Act 3.
Right after this.
And
Final act, yeah.
Yeah. And, that really says a lot, that you care for a character who's not even that prominent.
Who you've met in literally one scene.
Yeah.
Maybe
2 or 3 times, yeah. So they knock him out, and
they go back to Josh's house.
This tie them both up.
Yeah. And one thing, I love the aesthetic of Josh's house, because if you really look, there's like a picture of him and his mom high-fiving, and like there's a little statue of them on the coffee table.
And I noticed it whenever I watched it the first time, and I don't think I mentioned it to you, but I'm sitting here like, this is perfect.
Yeah,
I don't expect anything else. I don't expect anything else out of that.
Yeah, no, so it goes on. Booker wakes up and they explain it. Millie reads this poem to him that she had left in his locker to not necessarily convince him, but make him believe that Millie is really inside the butcher's body. Yeah. And he was like, I knew it was you all along, Millie. Like, I was hoping it was you. Yeah. And it's really beautiful. Vince Vaughn, like, it's crazy how well Vince Vaughn delivers this stuff. It's like, oh my God, this is adorable. Like, I want them to get together so bad. Yeah. Like when she reads that poem. And Catherine Newton is amazing in this scene. We talked about it earlier, but I love her playing the butcher in distress. Like, help me get out. And she's like, she's hitting this line delivery so well. And she's like, oh, Booker, like I was saying earlier. She's amazing in this. And so is Vince Vaughn. Like, we already discussed what I'm saying, but like, this scene is great in Joshua's house.
Yeah, at no point did I feel like at no point was I confused who was playing what.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was great. Like, it's crazy how well they did.
They did a really good job at both of them playing their characters believably.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And, I'll commend them for that, which I've said 1,001 times. But that whole scene in his house, like you said, was amazing. Mm-hmm. And from there, after they convince Booker, they're like, oh, we've got to go get the Ladola, which is locked up in the
police
evidence vault.
Yeah, I feel like they had what a shitty looking evidence locker. We'll talk about this police station when we get there.
I guess it's because the town is thought to be small, but
yeah, all the cop cars. I saw this in a reference video earlier. All the cop cars say safest place on Earth or safest town on Earth. Yeah, which I think is funny, and they have a known serial killer. But anyways, they're like, all right, we're going to go get this. So they leave Josh at his house, because it's his home, with the butcher tied up. And then Nyla, Booker, and Millie go to the police station. So they go there, and we'll talk about Josh's house first. So his mom comes home, and he has Millie tied up, and she's like, what the hell, Josh? And he's like, oh, this is a sex thing. We're role-playing. And she was like, Joshua, you're many things, but you're not straight. But yeah, it's a really good scene between Josh and his mom. Like, I love those two. They have such a great dynamic. Like, it's perfect. You can just tell they're really living their best life together. And so the butcher escapes, obviously.
Yeah.
Gets loose. And then the
Comes
mom's
after
finally like, oh, shit. And they get locked into the room, and the knife goes to the door. And a lot of people say it's a reference to The Shining. And at first, I was like, you're full of shit. You're just making it up. But then it shows the underhand shot, like the Kubrick shot underneath a jack in the freezer door. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then
and it's not just a reference, I think, to that. And I think it's a loose reference. I don't think it's a very strict one.
Yeah.
That's kind of like tropey to begin with.
Yeah,
a knife
those shots.
Or something coming through the door. And that can be seen in a lot of media, through posters, books, art, just stuff like that. It's just a tropey thing. But it makes sense for it to be a reference of something, considering that this movie is full of references.
Yeah, and I think the costume director also did a really good job in this. I think her name is Whitney Ann Adams. She's done a lot of stuff. But a lot of people were mentioning how Millie was wearing red like Jack, and then Josh was wearing blue like Wendy in that scene.
Yeah.
She had on the blue bathrobe, so they were like, oh, yeah, we see it.
I don't know if it was intentional, but I could definitely see it.
Yeah, you can get that vibes from it. It's probably, I don't know, she had pretty good, like, references. Like, she did a really good job with the costume designs, I think, in the movie.
Yeah.
They really let her, like, run free with it. But anyways.
Sometimes costume is something that's drastically overlooked in movies as well. It's something that if you pay close attention to, it can really change the meaning of some movies. Like, for instance, like in
costume means everything.
Yeah, like for instance in Brightburn, I know I'm getting off topic, but I want to speak on costume design. I can't remember the kid's name, but as he goes down the descent of turning more and more evil, I believe his colors, the wardrobe that he wears, goes from, I want to say, reds to like grays and blacks, or vice versa. I can't remember how it goes, but that just goes to show how costume can
really play a part in a movie.
Yeah, really play a part in a movie and help translate ideas and mindsets and movie progression. But anyway, continue your thought.
I was just gonna say, so the butcher goes on to find out that he can't break down a door like the butcher could.
Yeah.
In his own body. And he pretty much just gives up because Joshua and his mom get away.
Yeah.
Because she takes off towards the police station. The butcher does. And we cut to the police station. And Nyla goes inside to get the Ladola. She's confronted with Shar and all that happens. But this is when my favorite scene in the movie happens.
Yeah, because I think I said early on, whenever the romance aspect was starting to be played into a little bit. I'm like, if Booker kisses
Vince
Vaughn, I will lose my fucking mind. I whispered that to you within like 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it happens.
Yeah. So they work up to it. They're talking, and Booker's like, you mind if I move back here? I'm kind of far away from you.
And I looked at you, and I was
we're
like,
we're jittering in the seats.
I'm like, no, don't let it.
It was funny. We're like, oh my God, please do it. And they work it up, and he's like, is it weird that I really want to kiss you right now? And my favorite, so they do kiss. Like Vince Vaughn and Booker start, macking.
I don't think it was like an actual kiss because it was covered up by hand. But
they still touch lips.
The fact of the matter is the mental image of a, like, I don't know how old Vince Vaughn is. I assume he's in his mid to late 50s. Yeah. Kissing a dude that's young enough to be his son, I was just like, God.
But it was so great because, and one thing I liked about it is Booker was okay with it. It was Millie that didn't was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a serial killer's body, and Booker's like, I don't care, I'll make out with you.
He's like, I'm up for it, bro.
Yeah, it's like, let's do whatever. And it was just great. Great acting delivery by both of them.
Yeah, it was, honest to God, it's probably for me one of the most memorable scenes because of how outlandish it is.
Yeah, and it was funny because when it was building up to it, I literally audibly said, and I'm not a big movie talker, but in the theater, I said, do it!
Yeah.
And like everybody was like, huh? And then they kissed, and I'm like, yes!
The whole theater laughed at it.
Yeah.
It was I say the whole theater like it was full. There was like 8 of us in the theater.
Yeah. But
and me, you, and Steven were 3 of them.
Yeah.
So,
it was really good though.
But after that, Millie, the butcher in Millie's body shows up.
This shows how bad of a cop Char is.
Yeah.
So they get her into the cell because what kind of gun just point blank like holds a gun at a bad guy's back? Yeah. Like that's such an easy like position to compromise, and he does easily. Like Millie has no problem.
She fires a warning shot at in
the beginning.
Yeah.
At the football field. Like these cops suck. They fired warning shots at the school.
Yeah.
And at the party that night.
Yeah, they're horrible.
Yeah. They're shitty cops.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's intentional. Well, maybe they just didn't know how to present a cop. But
yeah. Well, I think it was more so to.
It's like a Dewey scenario.
I think it was supposed to portray the police as competent to a degree,
but they're still idiots.
But yeah, because honest to God, if you think about it, if this movie had fully competent cops, the movie would have ended completely different, and the story would have just been.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I'm sure it was there for like writing constraints, and story constraints, but still, the fact of the matter remains. Long story short, the butcher gets her. Or, I'm sorry, not the butcher. Millie gets her into
the cell
and locks the door, and they get the Ladola.
And this is also another thing. I like how they write out cell phones and guns in this movie, which when you have cell phones and guns in a horror movie, that's a hard thing to get around. So a lot of people just write it out because they knock the gun out of her hand and they're like, just grab the fucking gun and just hold her at gunpoint, like go get the butcher that way. But they don't even think about it. They just rush off. And I'm glad they don't use that like easy cop out.
Yeah.
But anyway, so everybody gets together, and this is the final showdown. This is the final act.
Yeah.
And they go to the old mill where the butcher had planned this big party. And there's a lot of good stuff here.
Well, I don't think necessarily the butcher did this, but it was I don't think the butcher planned the party.
No, he did.
He did?
So when they're at the mini golf place, they're like, "We want to party. This sucks." And he was like, "Let's party at the old mill."
He did, didn't he?
Yeah, it was all his idea to lure them there. And so he takes the one jock, and he's like, "Hey," the jock's like, "Hey, Millie, let's go back here." And they get back here, and it's 3 jocks. Like they're obviously gonna freaking gangbang her.
Yeah,
because they literally make the comment. They're like, "You've got 3 holes, and there's 3 of us."
Yeah,
the numbers add up.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Okay." So she breaks the bottle, slits one of their throats, and he's like, "What'd you do to my friend?" And then here she goes. She pulls out this freaking chainsaw, and I'm like, "Yes."
And this is actually an off-screen kill,
but the delivery of it is great, I think.
So here's the deal.
I was a little disappointed at first.
We say this as if it's relatively quick from the woodshop teacher kill to where we're at now. But it's actually a pretty long time. The movie goes a pretty good time.
30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, without a kill, which is not abnormal. But the woodshop would have been the 5th kill.
No,
she killed
6th.
Yeah, it would have been the 6th kill. You're right. First. And then she kills these 3
guys,
football players all differently. She kills one by slitting his throat. One guy she knocks out but doesn't kill.
She cuts his head off.
Well, she does kill him.
Yeah. Not right away. Yeah.
But she pulls out a chainsaw and cuts this guy from the nutsack.
Yeah, just up his body.
Yeah, up his body.
The main guy.
Yeah, and she covers herself in blood. And
it cuts away. It doesn't show them dead.
Yeah, it doesn't show them until our titular heroes
roll up and see it.
Find them.
And like his head's cutting off. He's cut up from the balls to the chest.
Yeah, and then the other guy, I think he's missing
just got
his head
throat
too.
Slope. Yeah.
So that's kill 7, 8, and 9. So at this point, the kill count's at 9.
Yeah, it's racking up a good body count.
And while this is going on, Josh is actually looking.
Pulled away.
Yeah, looking, and he's pulled away by one of the football players who comes on to him fairly strong. Doesn't
He kisses him.
Yeah, he kisses him. And he pushes him away.
And then he is an asshole.
Yeah, and then he's an asshole about it. And as we said earlier, yeah, very derogatory. I think he actually calls him.
He drops the F word on him.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And what's good about this movie is all the assholes get killed.
Exactly. And it's almost like immediate payoff. So he backs up, and then bam, here comes the freaking butcher out of nowhere.
Yeah, here comes the butcher with like this fish hook thing.
Got like a Candyman, I know what you did last summer hook.
Yeah.
And just grabs his fucker
grabs him right in the eye and pulls him back. Yeah. And then he busts out through that wall where he pulled him through, and then he runs off.
No. The butcher, Millie, shows up.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then they start fighting. Now, a lot of people are wondering, and I think we talked about this too, and I noticed this in my second watch. A lot of people were wondering why Vince Vaughn was running so slow. Like why Millie was running so slow in his body there at the end once they were chasing the butcher. He got stabbed in the leg with the fish hook.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't catch that. They were like,
really?
oh, it's just his bad cardio.
I caught that my first time.
Yeah, he just got stabbed. And it's also funny. Like, I think that's freaking hilarious. So the butcher gets away and they start chasing her because it's almost midnight. And Millie is running at him and he's like real slow and limping. And then Nyla just comes like sprinting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's like a freaking
it.
cheetah.
And so does Josh. They both come running up past him.
They tackle her and get her down. And then the watch goes off. And it's like, shit.
Yeah.
Like they've hit midnight, and then she's like, "Oh wait," and we actually skipped this part earlier.
And whenever that happened, my heart dropped.
Yeah, I was like,
fuck. You gotta be kidding me.
And it suspended my disbelief. I was like, shit.
Yeah, like, it really fucked with me because I'm like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah, because I had forgot at this point that when they first got to the old mill, Booker had taken off his Apple Watch and put it on Millie's wrist.
Yeah,
and they get there, and I'm like, shit, like, really? Like, I waited all this time, they're not going to switch? And then it shows the callback to shop class.
Yeah.
And when
where Booker said
talking,
he always has his clock set 5 minutes ahead. So
saves
he's always...
his ass every time.
Yeah, so he's always 5 minutes early.
Yeah.
So they have this realization, and they hold Millie down, or the butcher in Millie's body down.
Yeah, and stab her.
And stabs her in the chest, and they succeed in swapping their bodies back.
And this is another example of bad cops. So I guess they didn't account for that the butcher would be the butcher again.
Yeah.
So he gets up, and then Josh is just like, shoot that motherfucker! And then the cops just listen to this 18-year-old kid and just light into this
and they
guy.
just blow this guy away.
I know he's a serial killer, but at the same time, you can't just start shooting. You're not Dr. Loomis. Like, calm your ass down. And so then, everything's fine. They're sitting, they're having a cup of coffee, hot cocoa, and her and Booker finally kiss.
Yeah. And you would think that the movie ended there. And I thought expected to, because that seemed like a good way to wrap it up.
Well, I thought the barn burner was going to be this next part. I thought it was going to end with him waking up in the ambulance and killing the EMTs.
Yeah, and that like maybe lead into a sequel.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Mm-mm. Then it cuts to Millie at home.
It keeps going.
Yeah, and it gets even crazier.
The butcher pulled a Rob Zombie, Michael Myers, Halloween 2.
Yeah. So he escapes. He drops his the heart. What do you call that? That reads your heart monitor.
The oxygen.
Yeah,
meter,
he slips that off.
Pulsometer or
and
whatever.
Then these dumbass EMTs are like, I'm glad he's dead. Fuck him. And they get murdered.
Yeah.
Which that's off screen, but regardless, they die and he escapes.
What is that now? Because
so we got 4 at the beginning, Ryler, teacher.
10, 11. It's 11.
Okay. So we're up to 11 kills. And...
which is odd, because it felt like the movie didn't really have that many.
Yeah, but they were all so impactful. And they were all such great kills. Like, it didn't seem like it was like a pointless body count,
Yeah.
And every character that died had been established in some sort, except for 2 of the jocks, I guess, were just like backup, like rapists. But,
Well, it was always portrayed that the jocks were just douchebags anyway. And that's kind of like a stereotype, which...
it's true.
It's true.
Around here, at least.
Yeah, the football players that I went to school with, they were douchebags.
Yeah.
But, so, the butcher, knowing where Millie lives, goes back to her house.
Yeah, Millie's laying in bed with her mom. Char goes to bed. And Millie goes
well,
to
let's say this, too. Millie and her mom have a moment.
Yeah.
And it reflects what they talked about while they were in that dressing room.
And yeah.
She was like, if you want to, she's like, you go to college and make something for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, that right there was a good payoff to
their relationship.
How it started. Yeah. And it was good to see that come full circle. Mm-hmm. And it was also good to not see anything bad happen to the family.
Exactly.
Because of that, too. Because they had already been struck with
enough grief.
We didn't need an Ari Aster movie where everybody fucking dies.
Exactly.
But
Millie makes her way looking through the house.
Yeah,
and the butcher shows up
because she feels like there's something there.
Yeah,
and there is something there, and it's the butcher.
Yeah. And I think this is great payoff for him being silent in the beginning, because, like you were saying earlier, he's like the silent, like has nothing to say, but then he speaks. And it is so impactful.
And he goes on a villain monologue, and
he's like, it feels good, doesn't it? It's like, do it, Millie. And then he just fucking slams Char against his TV, knocks the mom out, and you think he's going to kill Millie. It's like, shit.
And it was good to see that, because it was good to see the butcher back in his element. Mm-hmm. It was good to see him at full power again.
And get taken down by Millie at her full power, at her full potential.
Exactly. It was good to see, like, even though she was smaller, that she had become so confident in her time in his body that she was able to protect herself and her family, which is something that I feel like if they hadn't have switched, she wouldn't have done. And that whole scene where Millie actually does, and the family actually fights the butcher together.
Yeah, they whip his ass.
Yeah. And it's very symbolic, because prior to that, the family was broken from the death of their patriarch.
Yeah,
the mom was very depressed, and she was worried about losing her daughter. Millie was wanting to break away from her mom and be her own person, and Char was very
independent.
Very independent. And the family was very torn apart from each other. Mm-hmm. But through all of this, which in most cases I would say it probably would bring a family together again. But you follow what I'm saying. It's very symbolic. And it means a lot.
People together.
That scene alone just goes to show that the last, I would say, about 15 minutes of this movie is the perfect wrap-up.
Oh, yeah, it wraps up the story perfectly. The whole story's family. And Millie gets a badass kill, too. Mm-hmm. She stabs him. Not only does she stab him in the back of the chair leg, she, like, karate kicks him, and it just goes straight through.
Yep.
And the mom is like, Millie?
Yeah.
And her line delivery at the end is perfect. We go back earlier, because Josh was telling her, you need to be confident. You're a fucking piece. Like, you're hot, Millie. And then she kills him, and she's like, I am a fucking piece. Mm-hmm. And then it goes off. It's just great ending.
Yeah.
The title... Not the title card, but the end credits is beautiful too. I love the aesthetic of it.
Oh yeah,
like the pop art and stuff.
I'm glad. That's something that you don't really see a lot in older movies, is them taking a lot of care of the end credits, because
a lot of modern movies do that, especially superhero movies.
And the reason why is because Marvel really kind of redefine end credits, which is odd. Most people don't give a shit about credits, but
it's a big thing now.
Yeah, within like the last 10 to 12 years, it's become more important.
Yeah, like when Halloween 2018 came out, we waited 10, 15 minutes to the credits just to hear Michael Myers breathe for 2 seconds. Credits are more impactful than you think they are.
At the end of Avengers Endgame, we waited all the way to the end of that just to hear Tony beating Tony, quote unquote Tony.
Yeah, beating the armor.
Exactly. But the movie had one of the best wrap-ups to any movie I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Could we define this movie as a horror movie? Obviously. Could we define this movie as a comedy? Yes. Horror comedy, of course. But to me, what this movie is it's a lot more than that.
It's almost like it's obviously a horror movie, but I think it's a family movie at the same time. And
it's a movie about a broken family
coming back
together because of a traumatic event. And
not only that, it's also about finding yourself and owning who you are. You might have, everyone has problems and everyone has, issues with who they are and how they look and how they act. But in the end, you're yourself, and you should fucking own it.
Yeah, exactly.
Your confidence is what matters.
Exactly. And Millie's the last line, "I am a fucking piece."
Yeah.
That goes to show how far she's come, and
Exactly.
and that line holds true to anything. You know, if you're out there and you're listening to this right now and you're feeling like shit about yourself, you're a fucking piece.
Yeah,
I don't care if you got a big forehead or a big ass nose and a pop belly with man boobs. You're a fucking piece, bro.
Hell yeah. Own what you got. You know, you got it for a reason. Anyone can be successful, and anyone can be perfect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
As long as you're confident and you know yourself that you are great, you'll be great.
And that's
how it is.
And that, honest to God, that's the message that I pulled from this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I do feel like that every movie has a message. Even horror movies have a message.
Oh yeah.
That was the message I drew from it. And to be
Own it.
fair, like it's very blatant. The message would be very blatant
Oh, I mean, yeah.
in this situation. But I
it's
mean,
so well delivered.
it's so well delivered, and I cannot give this movie more praise. I wish I could give this movie more praise, is what I'm trying to say. It's just there's not enough words in the English dictionary to praise this. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, it's the best movie of all time. No. But...
Well, speaking of praising, finish what you were going to say and I have an idea.
Okay. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the best movie of all time. It's not. Is it one of the best horror movies in a long time? Of course it is, because the story and the characters and the
Everything.
actors, the design, the tropes that it pulls, and how it kind of works for itself while still fitting within the genre is very great. And I can't wait to see what the director has in store in the future. Would I like to see a Freaky 2? Honest to God, no. The reason why is because I think it finished with a nice little bow at the top.
Serves its purpose.
And I don't want...
It to be tarnished.
Yeah, exactly. I want to remember this movie as a fucking piece. I don't want to remember this movie as a fucking piece of trash.
Exactly.
So, what were you saying?
Well, a few things. I was just going to say, I don't think I could name another horror comedy that I enjoyed more than this.
Oh, hell no.
I guess I love Tucker and Dale versus Evil. But other than that, Zombieland, if you consider that horror, which I guess it is because of zombies, or Shaun of the Dead maybe, but like it's great.
Well, here's the thing about horror comedy. With horror comedy, it's really hard to balance it. It's either a horror comedy or a comedy horror.
Yeah.
There's not a horror-medy.
Yeah. But I think this does it perfectly.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I was going to say, so my idea earlier, we haven't even talked about this. We're literally coming up with this. I'm coming up with this on the spot. So you guys are witnessing history right now. Let's start a rating system for the movies we review. We need some sort of name, 5 out of 5 blank. So we probably can't come up with it on the spot, but we'll at least have it by next week. But let's
Okay.
rate Freaky.
So,
you know what?
We're going to do it out of 5 or we're going to do it out of 10?
5 out of 5 is normal.
Okay.
You know what? Fuck it. I'll say it. This is my first 5 out of 5 movie on KillerCast.
You really think so?
Dakota. I think if you look at on the grand scheme of things, it does so much perfectly that I don't have anything bad to say about this movie. Mm-hmm. The characters are great, the actors are great, the delivery is great, the plot is great, the kills are great. I can't think of anything, but I have no reason to mark off points.
And I sit here and I sit in disbelief in that. But whenever I'm sitting here thinking about it, because I don't want to sit here and say 5 out of 5 as well, but I have no reason to not.
Yeah. So that's my reasoning. So I was thinking about it when you were talking. I was like, I think I'm going to give it a 4 or a 3.75. And I'm like, why? Like, why not admit that I have no issues with this movie?
There's nothing.
It deserves my praise.
Yeah, there's nothing that I can think of that would I have no complaints of this movie.
I don't have a single
I can sit
complaint.
here and maybe nitpick little things, but I'm not the nitpicky type of person. And I think if you nitpick a movie on things that aren't...
They're that shouldn't be nitpicked.
That shouldn't be nitpicked. You know, like little things that really don't impact it at all.
Yeah, I said something earlier. I don't even remember what it was.
Yeah, so it wasn't important. If you can't,
I can't remember it 30 minutes later.
Yeah, it's not worth a complaint. So to be honest, yeah, I give this 5 out of 5.
Yeah, whatever our rating system's gonna
be. 5 plain dub cheese out of 5.
So no, we'll have a good name for it. I'll
we'll
post
have
it
a
on
good
Instagram
name.
if we come up with
This
it.
is just episode 2. We haven't really come up with everything just yet.
So normally, if a movie was perfect, it would get a 15 out of 15 because Chase is going to be in every episode. He just wasn't here tonight. So we'll say if it gets a perfect score, it gets the KillerCast Golden Star.
Yeah.
So with Chase not being here, that's a 10 out of 10. Congratulations, Freaky. You are KillerCast's first Golden Star winner, and I could not be prouder. I'm sure none of you are going to hear this. Maybe Christopher Landon will retweet us. Who knows? But my hat's off to all of you. Yeah. Everyone in this movie. From production, to the actors, to the director, to the writers. I loved it.
And again, if you have, I don't know how long the movie is. Let's say 2 hours.
An hour and a half.
If you have an hour and a half to 2 hours to sit down and watch this movie on like a Friday night with some friends, I know that's hard right now because of COVID.
Friday the 13th is I guarantee I'll watch this on Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah, 100%. If you have the chance to sit down and do it, I highly recommend this movie. If you couldn't tell by the praise that we've given it over this last probably hour and a half, 2 hours, I don't know how long we've been recording. There is no other movie that I'd rather watch this year than Freaky. And, you know, that's not really saying a whole lot because I haven't seen a lot in theaters. But I've also watched a lot of bullshit on Shudder and Netflix. And there's been a lot of movies I've watched this year. I've had a lot of free time.
Well, let me put it this way. So, every year on my Facebook account, I rank my top 10 movies of the year. And I'm not going to have a top 10 movies this year because I haven't seen 10. I only do things I watch in theaters.
That's fair.
And all year, Invisible Man held up. And I think Invisible Man is another 5 out of 5. But I love Invisible Man. I've seen it like 20 times. But for 2020, I've got to say Freaky's my favorite movie.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it the most. It might not be the best movie of 2020, but it's been my personal favorite enjoyment of 2020.
Yeah.
Been one of the only positive things we've had.
I agree.
But
yeah, man, give it a shot if you get a chance. It's got the KillerCast seal of approval, Golden Star of approval.
KillerCast Golden Star, baby. First one.
Yeah, 5 out of 5 from me, Kody, and 5 out of 5 out of Dakota over here.
You're probably not going to see that often, looking at our schedule of what's coming up.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be a bit till we have another Golden Star.
Yeah, because if you couldn't tell from the first episode, I like we like some weird shit. Movies.
Yeah, this is probably going to be the only Golden Star I would say for at least. I don't want to go on a limb, but I'd say we'll get at least to 25 episodes before we have another one.
Probably. But guys, this has been KillerCast episode 2 covering Freaky. 5 out of 5 from me and Dakota.
10 out of 10 Golden Star, baby.
10 out of 10 Golden Star.
Great movie. Check it out. It's available on pretty much any digital download. I mean, it's on Vudu, Google Play Movies, Apple Movies. You know, check it out wherever.
Yeah.
Don't pirate it. Don't be a bitch. Don't pirate movies.
Yeah.
You go out and pay for this. I'm just going to talk about this real quick.
Go ahead.
You know, this has been a shitty year, and it's really screwed up movies. I was looking at the box office for this earlier, and it only made around $13 million.
Yeah.
And that's because the theaters have been shut down. And, you know, if you want movies like this to keep coming out and us to keep getting great horror movies and great comedies, support them. You know, if you don't have $20 to spend on a movie to watch, I get that. But, you know, don't get it illegally.
Yeah.
Like, just... You know, get a group of friends. Get 4 or 5 of your friends. It's $5 a piece, and enjoy a good movie together. It's like buying a movie ticket.
Night.
When it comes out on Blu-ray, buy it on Blu-ray. Support this movie because it deserves it.
Yep.
And that's all I'll say. Don't pirate.
Yeah. But guys, this has been KillerCast episode 2 covering Freaky. Tune in next week, next Friday, of course. I'm not really sure what we're going to cover next, but the schedule seems like we're going to try to do something from the 2000s and on.
1 week.
This week it was Freaky. Next week we're going to try to do something from 1999 and back.
Yeah. Make sure to follow us on Instagram because we will post what movie
Yeah.
we're reviewing before that Friday. We'll probably say, let's say if the podcast comes out on Friday, the Tuesday before we will post what movie we're covering.
So follow us on Instagram. Tag there is KillerCast Official. I've also made a TikTok. KillerCast. I do quick movie reviews and a little bit of information on stuff. I just recently did one on the House series. You can also listen to this on Spotify. I'm working on also getting this onto
Other platforms.
on other platforms. Not really sure which ones yet. Probably try to get it on Audible sometime this week. So yeah, be sure to follow us, and we'll see you guys next week with a new episode. Be sure to be kind and rewind.
Thank you, guys.